Okay, I thought Aaron Nicholson summed up quite well then. Callum, great character from Nairn to come away with their first trophy in 11 years there.
Aye, he did. Carl Tremarco also summed it up quite well, saying it was a mad one, which was I think understatement of the year. I don't think I've ever quite been at a game like that. I mean, you'll have watched in the highlights trying to cover that as well. The fog wasn't exactly helpful in trying to see certain things that were happening, but I mean, Nairn, there was 2 real points where they could have folded at 2-0 down. I thought Ross County started really well the first 20 minutes. They looked sharp. I mean, credit to them as well in the sense of they took the final, as they've taken the whole competition, very seriously and tried to win it. They had 6 players in their starting 11 who were either on the bench or played some part in their game against St Johnstone on Saturday. Alex Samuel being one of them, who I thought was excellent on the day and obviously got his hat-trick. And they started really well, were on top, and at 2-0 down after 20 minutes looked like it could have been a long afternoon for Nairn. But it's amazing. I mean, Aaron Nicholson's first goal is just that sort of wee bit of perseverance and working hard, and once that went in, you could just see the sort of whole Nairn team just get a lift of confidence, and they were, from then on, I thought they were excellent. I mean, they were backed by a superb support as well, and you saw how much it meant to them at the end. And again, talking about moments where they could have wilted, to lose the goal right at the end of injury time, literally the last kick of the ball. I mean, it was interesting because there was a lot of folks shouting that referee Harry Bruce had played too much stoppage time, but that came at the end of the 3rd minute of stoppage time, so it wasn't like he'd played on for a ridiculous amount. And at that point in extra time, you did wonder, full-time side with perhaps that extra wee bit of fitness, the sort of psychological element of losing a goal so late. But I mean, Ben Kelly comes straight back and scores that wonderful goal, and
the goal of the final, let's be honest, it's a peach.
It was a cracker. And then, I mean, again, Samuel has his say, but back they come. They just sort of had that feeling for Nairn that they weren't going to be denied on the day. And I mean, it's a terrific sort of story. I mean, I touched on it in the build-up, actually, speaking to Stephen Mackay about it, but if you look back, Nairn's last final was in 2016, the Highland League Cup, and after that they sort of lost their main backers who'd sort of kept the club running for 20 odd years prior to that, and then the club going out of business was a risk. It didn't happen. They managed to survive, and Ronnie Sharp sort of rebuilt things over a number of years, did very well, and then Stephen Mackay and his team came in last season, and they've sort of taken it forward again, and obviously winning that trophy is just a great achievement for Nairn as a club.
In terms of the penalties awarded in the game, any issue with either of them?
Not for me. I mean, the first one, Dylan McLean, I feel for him a wee bit in that as he comes out, you can see Samuel's going to get the touch first, and he tries everything, I think, really to avoid making contact, but Samuel, good striker play, ensures that there is contact. Straightforward decision. And the Nairn's one is harder to see, but I think, for me, I thought Harry Bruce, seeing it again and speaking to him after, I thought he got it right, because George Harmon has a hold of the shirt, and Harry had the angle to see it, and it's one of those ones where if it's in the centre circle and it's given for a shirt pull, nobody would say anything about it or complain at all, but because it's in the box, it sometimes seems like there needs to be this sort of different threshold. But it was a shirt pull, stopped Aaron Nicholson turning, it was a penalty for me. And on that as well, I would just say, because often we'll sit here and analyse and criticise, but I thought Harry Bruce and all the officials had an excellent game in that final, handled it really well and played a part in why it was such a great final as well, with the way they handled it.
It can sometimes be tough to get a sense of the atmosphere on camera. When Sam Gordon's winner went in and then at full time, what were the scenes like? What was how jubilant were the sizeable Nairn support that you mentioned?
Very jubilant. I mean, the stand was packed, and the guy sitting next to me, I mean, my right ear, I mean, he was a fine guy, passionate, but my right ear, he was sitting to the right of me. I didn't think my right ear is quite recovered yet, because there was a lot of shouting for 120 minutes. But you saw even that wee bit, the players, there was I mean, a lot of Nairn supporters all round the ground, but over on sort of the far side from the stand behind the dugouts, there was a sort of big posse of them, and all the players sort of went over there before the presentation and sort of celebrated with them and that, and there was a few spilled onto the pitch, but nae too many. But I mean, who could blame them really? It was all good natured and people delighted with what they'd seen, because it'd been a long time coming for them.
It's hard to begrudge County their day of joy, because it's been quite a roller coaster for them in the last 10 years or so, in terms of the local community rallying round the club to build it back up again, all leading to this moment that we had on Sunday, where they've grown in belief throughout, not just the 90 minutes but the full 30 minutes of extra time as well, to become North of Scotland Cup winners.
And you have to say they really have done it the hard way. If you look at the games they've played, I mean, by no means easy games, but the first two were they beat Lossiemouth and they beat Forest Mechanics, but obviously fellow Highland League sides who, on any given day those games could go either way. But in the semi-final they've played Inverness Calais Thistle, who again had 5 or 6 first teamers started that game. They've beaten them. Ross County, the same Premiership side with Premiership players in that team, and they've managed to beat them as well. So short if they'd maybe played Brora as well, but I mean, it's a tough route to win a cup, that, and Nairn have come through and done it, so every credit to them.
A productive Sunday then for Nairn County, probably a less productive Monday in Nairn and Inverness. Well, the football gods have blessed us today, because that was another cracking game of football, that one, wasn't it?
It was tremendous. Like the final, tremendous. It's so funny because it's the best way I could probably sum it up is both teams could have won that, but neither deserved to lose it, if you know what I mean. In terms of the way they played and the spectacle they served up, it was first class.
We should have beaten the 9 goals we got at Inverness for the amount of chances the teams have had in this one.
Well, that's the thing, the last goal being scored in 58 minutes is possibly the most surprising thing, because after that there were so many moments where you were like, for either team, they're going to score again here, and no one did.
It's incredible to think that there isn't a goal, because honestly the chances in that last half an hour and towards the end, it's like a basketball game. You have a go, we'll have a go, and how nobody manages to put one more in the back of the net, I don't know.
On the goals, first of all, we were discussing before we started recording the pen that Formartine got, which allowed Dylan Lobbin to open the scoring. You were saying from the stand at North Lodge it was clearly a pen.
Well, I think the angle I had was I was sort of behind it, and it probably perhaps better than the camera in this instance, but for me I thought it was a penalty. Julian Wade gets wrong side, and Colin Williamson doesn't mean to, well, he goes down himself as well, but doesn't mean to take Julian Wade down or go down himself, but it's just that tangle when he was sort of trying to get back in contact, and they've gone down. And again, like I said with the Nairn penalty, it's one where if it's somebody breaking and it's in the centre circle, referee gives a free kick and there's no real complaint. But then again, in the penalty box there's maybe that wee question mark, but I thought it was a penalty. I noticed, there was Mark Nicholson got booked for dissent, and a couple of other Brora boys maybe sort of had a bit of a go about it, but Colin Williamson himself didn't say a huge amount, which is maybe slightly telling. The one moment I think as well relating to a goal of slight controversy, Brora's equaliser, where the quick, from a Brora perspective, the kid outstanding, quick thinking, well done. But what was slightly interesting about it was, referee Filippo Mazzoni was sort of standing in front of the ball and stepped away, and there was no real indication to Formartine that
it was live again.
This free kick could be taken, and it was. And I think what perhaps afterwards rankled slightly was there was other occasions after that where both sides tried to take quick free kicks and they were pulled back. But I think for Tony Dingwall and Jordan McRae obviously combining, great bit of play for their point of view, and a good equaliser. I do think more generally, and Ali touched on it in his interview, those sort of couple of minutes either side half time are what Brora will rue, because they'd got themselves in front right on 45, and then concede in stoppage time, and then concede right at the start of the second half. It's put them on the back foot and ultimately makes a big difference to the outcome. But with those 2 goals, Julian Wade's first one, I mean, he finishes it good striker play, but a lot of the credit has to go to Adam Emsley because the cross was
right in the mark,
outstanding. Then the third one, Julian Wade gets all the credit because I mean he was excellent on the day, but that finish he had for Martin's third goal was top notch.
I thought Ewan McDonald in the Formartine goal was terribly unlucky with the goal to make it 3-3 from Brora, because I think he makes 2 big saves, and then it's like the second one's so close range, and he still gets a hand to it, and then obviously not so lucky with the third bite.
Well, what I would agree with you, he maybe got his wee bit of luck that he was due after that with the one towards the end, because he made a great save again for Mark Shewan, and then the rebound, when it broke, you thought James Wallace would probably stick it away, and with defenders closing in, he's picked the right option, trying to just sort of bend it into the far corner. It's also hit the base of the post, so that was perhaps a wee bit of good fortune that Ewan was due after his good save.
Yeah. One of those games then where 2 ambitious sides will be thinking to themselves, perhaps if we score 3 goals in a game, we probably want to come away having won that game. But ultimately, football was the winner, was it not?
Certainly.
Definitely.
Okay, then 3 wins in a row then for Lossiemouth, and 3 clean sheets in a row as well, I believe. First thing I would say, Callum, was in our Press and Journal online match report, it had Ryan Stewart scoring the winning goal in that game. On our highlights, it had Murray Addison as an own goal. Are we going for own goal?
I think, as much as I like Ryan Stewart and I know he'll be desperate to claim it, I think it has to be an own goal. I mean, like when you see the angle, it was going past. I didn't think it had the curl on it to come inside the post. It was going past, and the wee deflection takes it in. So I think, unfortunately for Ryan, he's not getting that one in my scorers list. But I think you said 3 wins, 3 clean sheets for Lossie. I mean, obviously with games being off and things spread over quite a period, but excellent form regardless of who you are, to do that. And I think the clean sheets is probably the big thing, because if you look at their forward players, they themselves, and Frank McGettrick would probably say they should score more. Like they probably haven't got a player that you could hang your hat on and say they'll get 20 goals. But all their sort of forward players, like Ross Morrison, Ryan Stewart, Fraser Forbes, Ryan Facher, Ross Elliott, who's on the bench, Liam Archibald, even all these sort of players will all chip in with a good few over the course of a season, and that's the only thing is I'd probably say more of them should be looking to probably get into double figures and kick on. But that they showed there they are a threat. I thought, for Keith's point of view, feels like wee bit like the story of their season at times in the league. I mean, they've only picked up 5 points, but in just about every league game they've played, they've competed well and been in the game, but just not both boxes, not final third a wee bit. They're just not quite taking the chances. So obviously they hit the post, and the other one hit the back post where looked a goal, and I think Keith players managed to knock the header wide, and it's just those little things that make a difference. Yeah,
I thought when Craig Ewan, after the game, Craig Ewan's analogy that it was an arm wrestle that they'd lost was quite a good one. I thought that was pretty accurate. Okay, moving on to the other games that took place on Saturday then in the league, and there were 6 of them. We'll start with the teams that are up near the top of the table. Forest Mechanics 2, Bankside 2. Cancans equalised twice in this one, which I thought was, decent display of character. I know we've been talking about character today, but another one.
I think the Cancans enjoy playing Bankside. They had a very good result when they knocked them out as holders from the Highland League Cup at the start of the season at Spain Park. They've just got that right blend. I think it can cause Bankside problems. But I mean, dear quality is Lachie McLeod's always going to be a goal threat for them. But I would imagine it's a decent result for the Cancans, given the kind of tough run they've had recently.
I think from Bankside's perspective, it's results like that when they've been in front twice that just you might get to the end of the season in terms of when it comes to trying to push to potentially win the league. look back at things like that and think that it's cost you. I mean, they were, you go back to earlier in the season, they were in front against at Rothes and conceded in the last minute, and we things like that, if there's a few of them over the season, can make a big difference. I noticed there were complaints about potential offside for Forest's second equaliser, but
yeah,
some days you get them, some days you don't. We haven't got anybody drawing lines on the pitch yet in the Highland League, so that's just.
If you were anyone filming,
that's just the way it goes. But as Thirdy said, I mean, we saw Forest last week. You know, they nearly came back for 3 down against Brora, and they've shown that they didn't wilt, they didn't fold.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the goals in that game, Gary Wood opened the scoring for Banks of D before Ethan Cairns quickly equalised. Then after the break, Lucky McLeod's goal was cancelled out by Tom Brady, not that Tom Brady. Wick Academy 2, Huntly 2, another draw for one of our teams up near the top of the table. But, I mean, both camps seem to agree after the game that Wick perhaps deserved to win this game, and Wick have certainly found a bit of form in recent matches, haven't they?
That's the thing, it was interesting. Huntly obviously been in front twice, but Stephen Laird, their assistant manager, said afterwards that it was very much a point gained rather than 2 dropped the way it had panned out. Andy Hunter scoring twice, there's a surprise, but I think for Wick now, I mean, that's 2 home games they've had the last couple of weeks and taken 4 points from it, and the important thing I think is they're sticking the ball in the net again, which makes a big difference. I mean, Kyle Henderson scored on Saturday, and he's a player that when I saw him earlier in the season, I thought he had the potential to really take the league by storm, and it hasn't quite happened for him yet, but getting a goal on Saturday will certainly do him good. And Gordon McNabb's a player who's maybe, by his own admission, sometimes a bit up and down, but by all accounts I think he scored a worldie on Saturday as well for long range. So I think for Wick that's a real positive performance. Looking at Huntly, I mean, they've just dipped a wee bit. Their last 4 games, they could have, in all competitions, they could have won all of them. They haven't won any of them, which probably, well, I'd say probably it will be a point of frustration for them, because they could have been in the 3rd round of the Scottish Cup, they could have been in the final of the Aberdeenshire Shield, and I mean on Saturday being in front twice, they could have gone on and won, and even last weekend the chances they had in the first half could have potentially beaten Formartine. So just again, old cliche, but both boxes a wee bit for Huntly at the moment, letting them down, and just not last recent run, nay over the whole season clearly.
Injury Locos 0, Buckie Thistle 2. Scott Adams scored in the first half. Sounded like Locos had a couple of early chances, but Buckie got themselves ahead through Adams. Then after the break, sounded like reasonably one-way traffic before Darryl McHardy finally broke through with Buckie's second on 66 minutes. Dean Donaldson was another boss to have a go at the officials after this one, but I thought it was perhaps more interesting in talking about the need for Locos to find a natural goal scorer, sort that side of things out, because that's something they're lacking.
They had one, but he's up at Christie Park. Well, let's be honest.
Well, if you want to go back, they had
Neil
had Andy Hunter and Neil Gold, but that's managers previous to Dean that let them go, so that's, you kind of put that on him. But I think the need for that natural goal scorer has been pretty obvious all season. I mean, even you look at the recent run, it's 2 goals in 4 matches, which, you know, isn't gonna earn you many points really. I mean, even they had Gary Wood and Johnny Smith on their books as well this season, and they're obviously no longer there. So it's a solution that might take a bit of time for Dean to find. I'm sure he'll get that time, but I mean, it's just that's an issue, and if you're not scoring, it puts pressure on you defensively, and I mean, Buckie will put pressure on you defensively any time, and I'm sure for their point of view, and I think Graham Stewart said it as well afterwards, having conceded 5 against Aberdeen in the Aberdeenshire Shield last Wednesday, to keep a clean sheet at Harlow Park on Saturday, I'm sure he'd have been thrilled.
Yeah, back from business in America as well, I noticed, Graham Stewart for that game. Beacon City 6, Clattenacudden 0. Goals from Fraser McLeod, hat-trick from Grady McGrath. Must have some amount of goals now, Grady McGrath, this season. Ewan Loudon scored as well, as did Hamish Thompson for Brechin. But Brechin's kind of post-match comments were quite interesting in hailing Daniel Ray's goalkeeping display for Clark, and so it sounded like it could have been worse potentially, which, given we'd seen under Conor Gethin's maybe like a little bit of bounce so far from Clark, for it to have their sort of assistant manager Robbie Duncanson then saying that like they were beaten before they even started the game, lack of belief, that's quite disappointing.
I was going to say that was the most telling comment of anything that was said after that game for me. Conor Gethin's was away at something that had been, I believe it was a family wedding that had been obviously penciled in for some time before he got the Clark job, so Robbie was standing in. And I mean, Clark's season ultimately isn't going to be defined by games against Brechin, but regardless of who you're playing, whether it's a team at the top of the league or a team at the bottom, you still need to sort of turn up with that bit of belief and optimism, I feel. And I mean, as Robbie's sort of touching on, like, if you're running out thinking we could get tanked here, then the likelihood is you will get tanked. But I mean, from Brechin's point of view, job done, carry on. You wouldn't really know there's been any change. Stephen Simmons seemed to just get them firing as they were when Andy Kirk was the manager.
Yeah. He was quite evasive, wasn't he, after the game, on whether he wants the chance to succeed Andy Kirk permanently at Glebe Park. I'll be interested to see. They're hoping to make an appointment this week, I believe. So
he's done his chances, no harm anyway with Saturday's display.
Right, well, we'll have to wait and see. Then hopefully it's not today before this comes out. Turriff United 3, Rothes 1. Rothes leading at half time in this one through Fraser Robertson. But ends up being Warren Cummins' first win and points as Turriff manager. After the break, Ewan Clark and Jack McKenzie scoring. Rothes captain Michael Finnis was then sent off for a second yellow card. I believe the second yellow was for dissent, and that helped John Allen add the gloss for Turriff. Late on, the big talking point after this one for me, potentially, and the talking points keep coming this week, Highland League Weekly, was Ross Jack felt Ewan Clark's leveller was a Thierry Henry against Ireland finish.
Well, he was keen to flag that up, but we haven't seen it, so don't know. But I think the first thing
we're Arsene Wenger.
The first, I've still got fog in my eyes for Sunday, but the first thing about this game is obviously first win that Warren Cummins has had as a manager, and I think what I would say was impressive about it is, if you speak to probably all the other clubs in the league, nobody, when they lose Rothes, wants to lose the first goal. And we saw it last week against Clark, because once Rothes get themselves in front, they're very, very good at shutting up shop and limiting your chances and not letting you score, and then they'll beat you. So having lost that goal, you might have thought it could be one of those days for Turriff a wee bit, but they've come back really well. Obviously, if we see the equaliser and it is handball, then they've had their wee stroke of good fortune there, but I'm sure Ewan Clark will be adamant it wasn't handball. But either, I mean, clearly for Rothes, they haven't reacted particularly well to that either, which hasn't helped their cause. But for Turriff, I mean, back to winning ways, and maybe a sign of good things to come in the new regime as well.
Yeah, I met a guy in reception in this building this morning who told me to talk up Turriff, and once again we see that Turriff have got plenty of goal threats through Ewan Clark and John Allen, both on the score sheet. Ross Jack, in fairness, as you sort of alluded to, he did also say that his team completely collapsed in the second half and that they didn't deserve anything from the game, so fair play. Finally then, from Saturday's results, a big one this one, Strathspey Thistle 5, Devon Vale 2. Got 5-2 last game. It just shows you how good an episode this has been.
Some weaker football, for sure.
So, in terms of the goals in this one, Liam Shewan and Jack Davison had the Jags 2-0 up before Oleg Dlugos's double had Vale level. Early in the second period, Davison, Ross Logan and Michael McKenzie sealed the win for Strathspey. Though disappointing for Devon Vale, I think Craig Stewart afterwards was talking about how performances like that show him that his team's got a lot further to go in their development than he thought they had. But for Strathspey to be up and running with their first points in the league this season, 3 points now, what that does to the table makes things look really tasty down the bottom, especially with Strathspey having played less games than some of the sides above them as well.
Well, the thing is, and I know it's only November, but after we saw Strathspey getting beat by Lossy a couple of weeks ago, I think I said that they needed to get something on the board, so especially with the run they had soon, or there was a danger of them getting cut adrift. So I think Saturday's result's a huge result, because you look at the games on Wednesday night, they're playing Keith at Kynoch Park, and then on Saturday they go to Clach, and that's two teams again who are round about them in the table, down in that sort of bottom 6 at the moment. So if they could pick up another win or 2 wins or something out of that game, it'll make it very interesting at the bottom end of the league in the months ahead. And I mean, in terms of the game on Saturday at 2-2, well, Craig Stewart said this, and probably folk maybe who were just seeing the scores coming in, once it went 2-2, you'd have probably thought there was only one winner, which you'd have probably thought would have been Devon Vale. And we've seen it in the past with Strathspey, where they might have just gone at that point and ended up getting beat, but they've responded really well. They've taken advantage maybe of bits of sloppiness for Devon Vale as well, and they've run out handsome winners, and I hope for them that can be a sort of springboard to move forward, because I mean, we've spoken before about the top end, and you're always looking for a tight title race, but certainly it would add a lot of excitement to the league as well if it's close at the bottom, and with a sort of a real battle to see who finishes bottom.
The other clubs won't thank me for saying this, but the neutrals will be rooting a wee bit for the Granton Jags this week in their 2 games they've got coming up, because like Callum says, we want a title race involving 3, 4, 5 teams. We want a fight at the bottom involving the same number.
Who would have thunk? Inverurie Loco is 1 point ahead of Strathspey in mid-November, and having played 2 games more than Strathspey. Anyway, enough talk about the Highland League table. Here is the latest Highland League table. You can see the standings for yourself.